The world once again turns its eyes toward Gaza, a land where every ceasefire feels temporary, and every silence is only the pause before another storm. But this time, something different is unfolding. France and Britain, two of the West's oldest powers, are quietly drafting a plan that could redefine not only Gaza's future but also the global balance of influence across the Middle East. According to recent diplomatic leaks, both nations are refining a United Nations resolution, one that would deploy a stabilization force into Gaza under international supervision. The move comes at a time when the region stands at the crossroads of war and political chaos, and the world's major powers are repositioning their pieces on the global chessboard. But make no mistake, this is not just about peacekeeping. It's about power projection, strategic control, and rewriting the rules of influence in a land that has witnessed decades of geopolitical struggle. Let's break it down politically, militarily, and economically. The political chessboard. To understand France and Britain's motives, we have to rewind. Both nations carry historical responsibility and strategic interest in the Middle East, from colonial legacies to oil diplomacy and arms trade. But in recent years, their relevance has faded as the U.S., Russia, and regional powers like Turkey, Iran, and even Qatar took the front seat in Middle Eastern politics. Now, with Washington distracted by its upcoming elections and its focus split between Europe and the Pacific, Paris and London see an opening but chance to reclaim political relevance through diplomacy. Wrapped in humanitarian language, by proposing a UN-backed stabilization force, France and Britain present themselves as mediators, not occupiers. They can step into the vacuum left by declining American involvement, appealing to both global allies and the Arab League as balancers of peace. But behind the diplomacy lies an unspoken motive: control of the post-war architecture of Gaza. Whoever leads this mission will control the logistics, intelligence flow, and diplomatic narrative of Gaza's reconstruction, and that is a geopolitical goldmine. To dot the military calculations. From a military perspective, a stabilization force sounds peaceful, but its implications are enormous. The term itself is deliberately ambiguous. Unlike traditional UN peacekeeping, a stabilization mission allows for active defense, limited engagement, and counter-terror operations if deemed necessary for maintaining order. That means Western forces are potentially under British and French command that could gain operational access into Gaza, possibly working alongside selected Arab partners such as Egypt, Jordan, or Morocco. This structure would give NATO-aligned countries a strategic foothold, one that borders both Israel and Egypt, and faces the Mediterranean sea lanes critical for trade and energy transport. However, this plan also risks confrontation. Israel may resist any foreign deployment inside Gaza, fearing it would limit its operational freedom. On the other hand, Palestinian factions, especially Hamas or Islamic Jihad, would see any foreign force as an extension of Western occupation, not peacekeeping. This creates a highly volatile environment, where even a small spark could ignite conflict. The military logistics alone are daunting, ensuring supply chains, securing corridors, and preventing infiltration while under the constant threat of asymmetric attacks. Western strategists are aware of this risk, yet they view it as a necessary gamble to shape the next phase of the conflict rather than merely reacting to it. 3. The economic and strategic stakes behind every military move in Gaza lies an economic motive, and this one is no different. Gaza's coastline may be small, but it holds strategic access to potential natural gas reserves in the eastern Mediterranean. Several energy companies, especially French and British, have been eyeing offshore resources near Gaza and Israel for years. A stabilization operation could indirectly secure these interests under the banner of peace and reconstruction. Moreover, UN-led reconstruction effort would involve billions of dollars in contracts, infrastructure, logistics, technology, and humanitarian supplies. European firms could benefit enormously from these rebuilding projects, giving France and Britain not only influence but tangible economic returns. Meanwhile, regional players like Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar are also maneuvering to lead the rebuilding phase, each aiming to expand its influence in the post-war balance. The result? A silent economic race disguised as humanitarian recovery. 4. The broader geopolitical context now, step back and look at the big picture. This proposed UN force isn't just about Gaza. It's a message to Moscow, Beijing, and Washington. France and Britain are signaling that they can still shape international security without depending entirely on the U.S. NATO's European Corps wants to prove that it can handle complex conflicts independently, a theme that has gained traction since the Ukraine war. For Russia, the move is worrying. Moscow views Western involvement in Gaza as an attempt to weaken its own diplomatic leverage with Iran and the Arab world. For China, it is a reminder that Europe still plays an active role in the Middle East's energy corridors, which Beijing needs for its Belt and Road Initiative. The Middle East, once again, becomes a theater for great power rivalry, and Gaza, the smallest battlefield, might ignite the biggest diplomatic showdown. 5. Possible scenarios. Let's break down what could happen next. Scenario 1. The resolution passes. The UN Security Council approves the mission, likely after delicate negotiation with Russia and China. France and Britain lead a multinational force with limited Arab participation. Gaza transitions into an internationally managed zone for reconstruction, reducing direct Israeli involvement but sparking debates over sovereignty. Scenario B. If the plan collapses, Israel and the U.S. quietly block the resolution, citing security risks. France and Britain face diplomatic embarrassment, and the initiative dies in committee, proving again that the UN is more symbolic than functional in conflict zones. Scenario C. Hybrid implementation. A compromise emerges. No full UN mission, but a coalition of advisory forces working under humanitarian or reconstruction titles. This is the most likely outcome, allowing Western presence without full military deployment. Each of these paths leads to different global reactions. If successful, the operation could strengthen Europe's diplomatic standing and partially stabilize Gaza. If it fails, it could deepen divisions and embolden militant factions. 6. The hidden battle for influence. Beyond policy papers and press releases, there's a deeper game. Every power, France, Britain, the U.S., Russia, Iran, Turkey, and even Egypt, is fighting for one thing: narrative control. Whoever defines Gaza's stabilization defines the future of Middle Eastern diplomacy. France wants leadership in peace diplomacy. Britain wants post-Brexit global influence. The U.S. wants stability without responsibility. Russia wants to keep the West distracted. And regional actors want control over the aid pipelines. In the end, the supposed mission of peace becomes a contest of perception. Whose version of peace will prevail? 7. The human and moral dimension. But beyond all this geopolitics, Gaza remains a humanitarian tragedy. Millions displaced, infrastructure shattered, hospitals under strain. France and Britain's proposal, no matter how strategic, also appeals to global conscience in an attempt to justify intervention through moral urgency. Yet the question remains, will it truly bring peace, or simply shift control? The answer lies not in resolutions, but in what follows after it, and how forces behave on the ground, and whose interests dominate reconstruction. 8. The conclusion. So, as diplomats in New York draft paragraphs and debate wording, the real decisions are being made in military command centers, intelligence meetings, and energy boardrooms. Gaza's fate will depend on how these overlapping ambitions collide or align. France and Britain's move might look like diplomacy, but it's also a message to the world: Europe is not done shaping the future of conflict. The coming weeks will test whether this plan becomes a path to peace or the start of a new kind of occupation under a different flag. One thing is certain: the silence before the vote in the UN is not peace. It's the calm before another geopolitical storm.